There is, as we speak, a massive anti-woke backlash that is absolutely crushing critical race theory all over the nation. In this video, we're going to take a look at another election in Texas, a school board election, where critical race theory went through a humiliating defeat. We're going to take a look at what critical race theory actually tries to teach our school kids and how state after state are rising up and banning critical race theory from their borders like never before. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you. As always, we are your anti-woke fake news antidote that analyzes current events in light of larger conservative trends in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we dive in here, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's our good friends over at Virtual Shield. Gang, if you're not using what's called a VPN or virtual private network on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device while browsing the internet, then you really are exposing yourself to a lot of potential danger. But protecting yourself online has simply never been easier. And to make it even better, our good friends over at Virtual Shield, they're offering our audience 50% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons. So don't wait. It is a limited time offer, so click on that link in the description below and sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We've got some amazing news coming out of the whole controversy over critical race theory that's just being shoved down the throats of these poor school children across the nation. Texas had a big weekend this weekend. Not only did they have the special congressional election in Dallas, it was a congressional district that ended up shutting out the Democrat candidate. We just did a video on the significance of that election. You will definitely want to check it out. We also contrasted it with Romney getting mercilessly booed at the Republican convention in Utah. But not only do we have the election where the candidate endorsed by Trump ran away with and Democrats fell apart, we also had a Texas school board election that scored an overwhelming victory to stop critical race theory from being forced into Texas classrooms. The elections in Southlake on Saturday were highly contested. There was a lot of publicity around them, right? Even the so-called pop star Demi Lovato came out saying, "It's horrifying to see how some of the parents are literally fighting to uphold white supremacy and are resisting the anti-racism work that's so needed." Well, Demi, not only are you clueless on the nature, the thoroughly Marxist nature of critical race theory, which we'll get into in a minute, but your assertion that only some of the parents were against it, upholders of white supremacism, your assertion was blown apart this weekend. Look at this headline from the Daily Mail in the UK. Anti-woke candidates opposed to critical race theory being taught in Dallas school win control of affluent district board with nearly 70% of the votes. 70% of voters rose up and told the woke left and SJWs like Demi Lovato to get the hell out of our schools. That was the message, plain and simple, over the weekend, right? That's what came out of Southlake, Texas. Get the flying hell out of our schools. Needless to say, this election in this very upscale Dallas-Fort Worth suburb is making waves throughout the media, or better, more accurately, it's making its way through the conservative media. The left-wing outlets are doing their best to ignore that the vote even took place. Critical race theory got crushed so badly in the Southlake election that the Marxist media seems almost embarrassed to talk about it. It was such a humiliating defeat. Now, to their credit, as of the making of this video, NBC, to its credit, did report on the election, although they couldn't help themselves. They had to point out that the big winners were, quote, opponents of anti-racism education. You know, it must be so wonderful to be a far leftist cultural Marxist today, to see your worldview so faithfully championed by the mainstream Marxist media. If you want to get a sense of just how ridiculous our media is, our mainstream media, when it comes to reporting on what critical race theory actually is, right? And calling it anti-racism stuff and all that. So if you want to see how absurd the kind of caricature of CTR critical race theory is, you'll definitely want to check out my video on how the nation of France is actually calling for a full ban on critical race theory coming out of the United States. They don't want to have critical race theory coming anywhere near their shores. They see the racial divisions that are getting fomented here, and you definitely want to check the video out because I think it's a real eye-opener in terms of what this stuff really is. But just to make sure we're clear, if you're not aware on what critical race theory, or CTR as it's often referred to, is, when all is said and done, what our kids are getting taught, right? They're getting taught that our nation is inherently unjust. And that's because our nation has two groups of people. CTR is effective because it's so pathetically easy. A kindergartner can get this, okay? Our society has two groups of people. One group oppresses and hurts and treats unfairly the other group. Now that group, the group that gets oppressed and is constantly treated unfairly, that group is always good. While the first group, the group that oppresses and persecutes the other group, the good group, that group is always bad. So CTR is a theory of good and evil, or better, a good versus evil in its narrative. So our society is a bad society. It's unjust because it has two groups of people where one group, the evil group, is always oppressing and persecuting the other group, which is always good. Now, you may be wondering, and of course we know that our kindergartners would be wondering quite out loud, so how do we tell these two groups apart? How do I know who's in the bad group and who's in the good group? And what's the answer to it? You know it. What is the answer that critical race theory curriculum teaches to these students? The answer itself is also very simple. You can tell them apart, the two groups, by their race. Their race is what gives them away in terms of who belongs to which group. This is what the mainstream media is calling anti-racism curriculum. It's an absolute travesty of any semblance of a sense of reality to even think about referring to CTR as merely anti-racism. CTR is a shockingly pernicious and appallingly racist doctrine. And that's exactly how the citizens of Southlake, Texas understood it. They rightly understood that CTR is a horrific and vicious form of reverse racism, one that's getting thoroughly implemented on our laws. Well, that is until now. What happened in Southlake really is just the beginning of what is nothing less than a massive anti-woke wave that's flooding the nation. The state of Texas itself is in the process of banning CTR, critical race theory, from all Texas public schools. The Texas Senate has just passed a ban on CTR, and it's expected to become the law of the state in the weeks ahead. I'm sure many of you already know about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He recently announced that critical race theory would no longer be permitted in Florida's public schools, calling critical race theory curriculum divisive, racist, and anti-American. And that's precisely what it is. In his formal announcement, Governor DeSantis said, quote, "There's no room in our classrooms for things like critical race theory. Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer money." In the state of Idaho, the governor recently signed a bill that bans CTR from their public schools. In Oklahoma, GOP lawmakers have sent a bill to their governor effectively banning CTR from their classrooms. The Iowa House has just passed similar legislation that actually extends the ban to the issue of gender as well. It's all part of what is called Marxist critical theory. So they apply this good group versus bad group dichotomy to race and gender and sexuality. And Iowa's banning CTR's application to gender concepts. Tennessee lawmakers are pushing through bills that are doing the same. Everywhere we look in red states across the nation, everywhere we look, we're beginning to see massive anti-woke backlashes absolutely crushing critical race theory all throughout our nation. Now, before you go, I don't want you to miss the coverage of our the other election in Texas over the week, in the special House seat election in the Dallas district. The GOP absolutely dominated that election, and many pundits believe it's a bellwether for the Democrat bloodbath in 2022. Also, we got a video of Mitt Romney actually getting mercilessly booed at a Utah GOP convention. You're not going to want to miss our analysis of how these two events are related. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.